I recently read the book The Accidental Creative by author Todd Henry. Todd provides a much-needed revision to the perception of the creative worker. He says the tag creative sometimes conjures up images of Soho advertising gurus flitting about in $500 designer jeans. But the term creative in today's workforce could easily be replaced by strategist or manager. He adds, call yourself anything you want, but if you're responsible for solving problems, developing strategies, or otherwise straining your brain for new ideas, I'm going to call you a creative, even if you end up being one accidentally. The creative in today's workforce is expected to have a consistent output of good ideas. But if your work requires the generation of new ideas, you've probably noticed that coming up with creative ideas is hard and unpredictable. Most of us, including myself, have flashes of brilliance followed by long stretches of frustrating mediocrity. Todd tells us that we can develop a predictable rhythm of creative ideas and experience a sustained level of brilliance in our work. But to do so, we'll need to continually fight off the 3 creative assassins. The first assassin, dissonance. See, our minds naturally want to resolve tension and connect the dots. We love stories because we can't wait to see how the protagonist will resolve the conflict. Our compulsion to resolve tension and find solutions can be a distraction when doing creative work. Because creative work is filled with uncertainty, we often direct our dissonance-reducing mind to resolving the inefficiencies in our day-to-day activities, regardless of how effective they are at getting us to the intended outcome. Dissonance leads us to create elaborate spreadsheets when a simple spreadsheet would do just fine. It urges us to develop advanced automated software programs to complete tasks when most of those tasks aren't essential to achieve the outcome in the first place. Todd says, I tend to complicate things when I feel uncomfortable or insecure. It's a defense measure. A few years ago, a coworker called me out on my complexity addiction, and ever since then, I've kept a printout of the following on my office door. The first assassin, dissonance, kills our creativity because it leads us down a path where we have a disconnect between what we do and why we are doing it. The need to constantly resolve conflict leads us to create increasingly complicated systems and ultimately squanders our creative energy. The second assassin is fear. Todd says, we are hardwired to stay close to the herd and blend in as much as possible. After all, in the animal world, the members of a tribe that stand out are often eaten first. Our herd mentality creates a fear of failure and a fear of success. See, if we try to pitch a creative idea to a group of people and it isn't well received, we fear falling out of favor with that group and risk being left alone and vulnerable. Or if we have a successful creative idea that moves us ahead of the pack, we fear that we won't be able to find another tribe to fit in, or worse, be unable to sustain our progress and fall back to the tribe we're currently in, but find out they no longer want us. The second assassin is fear, and it kills creativity by urging us to maintain the status quo and avoid pitching creative ideas that might put our reputation at stake. The third assassin comes in the form of escalating expectations. Our expectations naturally rise when we start a creative project. We reflect on past performances or we have aspirations to be like our heroes. But these rising expectations make the creative process difficult to initiate. Why? Well, your expectations act as a filter for your next idea. When your expectations are too high, very few ideas are able to pass that bar. Since creativity often involves combining several mediocre ideas in order to find a great idea, the creative process gets killed long before it gets a chance to develop. The third assassin takes the form of escalating expectations, and it kills creativity by making us overly critical of new ideas and stopping the creative process before it has a chance to begin. These 3 creative assassins are powerful and destructive. So how do we defeat them? Well, we need to take a lesson from the Hall of Fame football coach, Vince Lombardi. See, at the beginning of each season, Vince would gather his team of pro football players around him and start by holding a football up in the air and saying, "This is football, boys." Vince started each season by bringing it back to the fundamentals. Like Vince, we need to constantly approach our creative work by going back to the fundamentals. But unlike football, our season needs to restart every week, not every year. To hold off the 3 creative assassins, we need to start each week with a fresh approach. The F in fresh stands for focus. At the beginning of each week, identify your big 3. Todd says, the big 3 are the 3 most important items that you're looking for critical insight on. They're items that weigh heavily on your mind, keep you up at night, or incite the most conversations among the members of your team? Use these 3 items as a filter for your experience throughout the week. Todd says, when I read a book, I'm looking for connections or concepts that are relevant to my big 3. When I have a conversation, I check it against my big 3 for possible new insights. The R in fresh stands for relationships. Todd says, when you neglect your relationships, you limit yourself to your own experiences. But when you approach your relationships with purpose, you will be able to draw on many lifetimes worth of experience for insight and inspiration. By actively making time to discuss experiences and gain new perspectives with a circle of people that have valuable experience, you can keep yourself creatively charged. The E in fresh stands for energy. See, holding off the 3 assassins requires a sustained level of energy throughout the week. To ensure our energy remains high, you need healthy rituals in place that cultivate a high level of mental energy. I suggest starting with the fundamentals. Develop a plan to exercise, eat well, and get adequate sleep each week. Creative thinking is an energy-intensive activity. Ensure that you have the support of key rituals to sustain your brilliance. The S in fresh stands for stimuli. The information we consume becomes the raw material for our creative output. Garbage in equals garbage out. So seriously consider the books you'll be reading this week and the media you'll be consuming. Are these resources likely to fertilize your creative goals? And lastly, the H in fresh stands for hours. At the beginning of each week, you need to look at your schedule and ask yourself, do the hours in my schedule this week reflect the 4 areas that I've just covered? Have I scheduled time for the big 3, scheduled time for key relationships, scheduled time for energy rituals, and made time to consume quality material? If you start your week off fresh, you have better odds of holding off the 3 assassins. Without the 3 creative assassins in your life, you'll experience sustained brilliance and have the ability to create on demand. That was the core message that I gathered from Todd's book. Todd has much more information on how you can periodically refresh your creative abilities and navigate the creative tensions you are likely to face each day. I highly recommend it for anyone who does conceptual work and strives to be sustainably brilliant. If you would like a 1-page PDF summary of the insights that I gathered from this book, just click the link below and I'd be happy to email it to you. If you already subscribe to the free Productivity Game newsletter, this PDF is already in your inbox. Thanks for watching.